All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. And just like that, there are only 16 teams left that have a chance to win the national championship this year in men's basketball. The action from the first full weekend of the NCAA tournament was fast and furious, and there were upsets aplenty. Now, St. Peter's, a number 15 seed in the East, is on to the Sweet 16 after they knocked off both Kentucky and Murray State. And for St. Peter's head coach Shaheen Holloway, he has made some money for himself in this tournament run. And of course, with the departure of Kevin Willard from Seton Hall to Maryland, for the former Seton Hall Pirates point guard Shaheen Holloway, of course, he was the starting point guard for the Pirates last time they made the Sweet 16. Um, you know, this is probably going to be it for him at St. Peter's, and the job there with the Pirates is his in the waiting. But nonetheless, this has been and it continues to be a tremendous run for the Peacocks. You also look at the top two seeds in the East region. They didn't even make it to the regional. I'm talking about Baylor and Kentucky. And honestly, I'm really not surprised about Baylor. This due to the fact that they had so many injuries, in the second half of the season, and they were very vulnerable. And they lost to a very good North Carolina team. Actually, when I filled out my bracket pre-tournament, I picked North Carolina to win that game. Obviously, I didn't pick St. Peter's to be in the Sweet 16, but nonetheless, I did pick Carolina to knock off Baylor. So that part of it is no surprise. But Kentucky is a very big surprise right there, that they didn't make the regional, more or less even win a tournament game. Now, two number 11 seeds are still dancing, and I'm talking about Michigan and Iowa State, while overall it's four double digit seeds that are still playing once you factor in St. Peter's and Miami. Now, the West is the only region where the top four teams made it to the regional. I'm talking about Gonzaga, Duke, Texas Tech, and Arkansas. As you know what, you look at the other regions, and you know what, it's been a bloodbath, to say the least. Of least, excuse me. Now, nine teams from the Big Ten tournament, or the Big Ten conference rather, made this tournament. And of course, we saw Rutgers losing a playing game. Iowa was upset in the first round by Richmond. We also saw Indiana lose to St. Mary's in round number one. But the action yesterday saw the Big Ten really take it on the chin. Is only Michigan and Purdue are Sweet 16 bound, while Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Illinois all lost yesterday. And honestly, the only surprising loss out of those. Out of that quartet for me is Wisconsin. They played their first two games in Milwaukee. The crowd was definitely in their favor, but nonetheless, they faced a very game Iowa State team who put the clamps on this Wisconsin offense early. I know the injury really set things back for the Badgers, but nonetheless, Michigan State, they faced a very good Duke team, and you knew that Michigan State wasn't going to go down without a fight, which you can expect from Tom Izzo's teams in March, which is what they did, but they just lost a tough one yesterday to a good Duke team. Illinois, you look at it, Illinois didn't make it out of the second round last year as a one seed when they lost to Loyola Chicago. And this time around, you saw Illinois coming down the stretch. They really weren't playing good basketball, and they lost to a very good Houston team, a Houston team that, in fact, did make the Final Four last year. Ohio State ran into a tough Villanova team. So, you look at it, like I said, with the exception of Wisconsin, all of these losses really weren't surprising for me yesterday with the Big Ten. Now, Arkansas is the only SEC team that made it through to the Sweet 16. And, I was one who, was a big proponent of what the SEC had been doing this year. I thought the SEC was actually going to get more than six teams in the field of 68. I really wasn't surprised to see Alabama lose their first game to Notre Dame because, Notre Dame's like they've been playing good. But then on top of that, Alabama's been an up and down team all year long. They could look great. They could be world beaters, but then they could turn around and not play well. And we saw that again once they lost to Notre Dame. Um, for me, Tennessee losing and Kentucky losing were the real shockers right there. I mean, for LSU, with all of the off the court issues right now, with former head coach Will Wade. Really was not surprised about that. For Auburn, Auburn did not look good in their SEC tournament loss to Texas A&M. And you know what? They got a Miami team that's playing some good basketball right now, and they made them pay yesterday. But nonetheless, with Tennessee and Kentucky, I think those are the big shockers. To see Tennessee lose like they did to Michigan, and then of course seeing St. Peter's get the best of Kentucky in round number one. Now, a lot of compelling stories in the East Regional heading into this coming weekend. I've already talked about the top two seeds from this region not being there. And you have North Carolina meeting UCLA in a battle of blue bloods. And then in the other contest, you have St. Peter's and Purdue. And for this Carolina team, they've been searching for respect all season long. And, for Hubert Davis in year number one as a head coach of the Heels, he's done a tremendous job. For Mick Cronin in UCLA, this club knows that they have what it takes to win it all. They were so close last year, made the Final Four. They were very, very close to getting past Gonzaga in that game and possibly winning a national title. A lot of that core is back from that UCLA club that made the Final Four last year. And this team feels like they have what it takes to not only get back to the Final Four, but to win it all. So that's going to be a great game when Carolina meets the Bruins. On the flip side with St. Peter's and Purdue, they haven't played their best basketball, but they're still dancing. And that's all it's about, survive and advance. And for St. Peter's, they're playing with house money, and they've been playing with house money for this entire tournament. They have a very solid team. But more importantly, their campus in Jersey City is not that far from where this regional is going to be in the East in Philadelphia, about an hour and a half trip from Jersey City to Philly. Less depending on how much traffic is on the Jersey Turnpike. But nonetheless, you're going to see the Peacock fans really come out and support this team. And I'll tell you like this, if this game is close, or if St. Peter's makes an impact early on, the crowd is going to be in their favor really, really big. And it's going to be interesting to see how Purdue reacts to that because, of course, they had the crowd in their favor over the weekend when they played in Milwaukee. Now, another compelling story right here in the Sweet 16 out west, you're going to have the offense of Duke going up against the defense of Texas Tech. And, we've seen the Red Raiders defense really put the clamps on opponents. Duke is one of the better offensive teams in this nation. So something has to give when these two clubs meet in the Sweet 16. Also, are Duke and Gonzaga on a collision course? We talked about Duke surviving Michigan State in the second round. Gonzaga also survived Memphis. They were trailing at the half. They came out very strong in the second half. They won the free throw battle definitely, and that's a big reason why the Zags are still dancing. But they first have to deal with a very game Arkansas team if they're ever going to think about possibly facing Duke, who has to deal with a very good Texas Tech club on their own. Now, Michigan was a question mark for many people coming into this tournament, but they got in and they're proving their worth now. We saw the Wolverines just do what they had to do against Colorado State in round number one. They got the best of Tennessee. And for Juwan Howard, he had this team on the cusp of the Final Four last year. They got to the Elite Eight. And you know what? Michigan has a very good chance to get to the Final Four. Also for Arizona in the South, will the Wildcats, first and foremost, be able to survive Houston in the Sweet 16 with this regional being in San Antonio? Now, if you're an Arizona fan, the city of San Antonio is very sentimental for you because you go back to 2001, Arizona won the Midwest Regional Final at the Alamo Dome. And of course, that was the last time that the Wildcats were able to make the Final Four. We saw Arizona make two more Elite Eight appearances in 2003 and 2005 under the late great Lute Olson, and then they made three Elite Eight appearances under Sean Miller in the West Regional, but they were never able to get over that hump. Will this be the charm for for this Arizona club? They really showed some grit, determination. They got down early last night against TCU. TCU did not go away. Some controversial calls late in regulation in this contest last night, but Arizona did find a way to pull it out in overtime. But they're going to have their hands full with this Houston team, the Cougars, and of course their head coach Kelvin Sampson. They definitely will be ready to play. Now the turnaround for Iowa State, this was a team that only won 2 games last year, and now they're trying to make the Elite 8 for the first time since 2000, and one thing that Iowa State definitely has going for them, they play D. And anytime that you can play D, it's going to give you an opportunity in every single contest that you go out there. And that's going to be an interesting game between Iowa State and Miami. You look at Miami, speaking of them, they have never made the Elite 8, but their head coach, Jim Larinaga, has, of course, when he had that magical run with George Mason when he led them to the Final Four in 2006. And now for Miami, a lot of people were questioning how they got past USC in round one, but we saw them really have their way with Auburn in round number two, and they're flying high, and this team is feeling good about themselves. For Providence, under head coach Ed Cooley, they're looking for their first trip to the Final Four since 1987 when Rick Pitino was their head coach. And for Providence, they're the 4 seed in the Midwest, have to face a Kansas team. The Kansas team is nobody's really talking about. I mean, we saw Kansas really struggle with an undermanned Creighton team, but they found a way to pull it out. And now they get to deal with another Big East club in the regional semifinal when they take on Providence and Ed Cooley. So that should definitely be an interesting matchup. So you look at this and you ask yourself, who has the best chance to make the Final Four? And honestly, at this point, the way that things are going, it wouldn't surprise me to see any of these teams that are still in this tournament reach New Orleans for the Final Four. Each team has a very compelling story. Each team can get hot. You look at Villanova. Could they make a third Final Four appearance under Jay Wright? Could Michigan take care of business in the South? We'll have to wait and see. Also, you look at the Midwest. I've talked about Kansas. You look at Providence. Iowa State has a very compelling story, as does Miami. So, up and down, Coach K, this is his last ride in the NCAA tournament. Could Hubert Davis, get Carolina to the Final Four? We saw this in 2000 when the Tar Heels were an 8 seed, and then they knocked off the 1 seed in that region, Stanford, in the second round. And then the Tar Heels got rolling and they rode that wave of momentum all the way to Indy for the Final Four. So there's a lot of things that can happen. I think this college basketball season as a whole has shown us that there really isn't that much separation from the haves and the have-nots. We saw it in the conference tournaments, and it's carrying over once again to the NCAA tournament. So there were plenty of upsets in the first weekend. I think there are going to be more upsets this weekend as well. So all we can do is stay tuned and see who's going to cut down the nets this weekend and get to New Orleans. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.